What's up, guys? Chris Brown, otherwise known as Chain Stasis Wellness, coming at you again from Train Boston with another wellness moment. Today, we're talking about part two of the book Ikigai, and we're going to try to relate this book to other aspects of wellness, and we're going to break it down into how you can use this stuff to make yourself more well and have a long and meaningful and happy life. So again, Ikigai is a book by Hector Garcia and Frances Morales, and it's trying to help you find meaning and purpose in your life. Ikigai essentially is putting a bunch of things together to help you get there. So, what you're good at, what you love, what you can make a living on, not necessarily money, but what you need to survive, and what you can give the world and what it needs. All those things come together, and you're going to be happy for life, right? So, what did this next section of the book get into to help people find that? Okay, so oftentimes people have a really hard time finding their purpose in life, and sometimes they even get to a point of depression or they feel stuck and they need some help. What the book gets into is different types of therapy, more European and Eastern styles of therapy that have been used in practice and can be used by anybody to help people get to that point. So the big one they like to focus on was called logotherapy, as opposed to psychotherapy or the traditional therapy you might hear of in America, right? So let's dig into this in this video and try to help you dig into another key point of finding yourself or your Ikigai. We can use the principles of these therapies and meditations to help better ourselves. Broadly, they're what I would call, in my category of chain stasis, as the chain link of stress management strategies, right? Unfortunately, both therapy and meditation have this stigma attached to them, right? It tends to be synonymous with kind of a bad word in America. We don't want to feel like we're broken or weak, and we shy away from it, especially men, but women can be the same exact way. It can even be taken offensively when someone might suggest that you could benefit from it. It's hard because you got to word it right. You can't say you need therapy. You might want to say you could benefit from trying this out or trying this practice out. The word therapy itself can be a little triggering for many people. In fact, you think about those memes online. If you like to look at memes, think of Will Smith or Michael Jordan crying, right? It's typically used to make fun of something. It's not, oh, look, this man is actually showing their emotions. Good for them. No. We mock it actively, and if you're not showing anger or aggression or something traditionally masculine, it's not seen as a good thing. So it can be some barriers to just getting started on therapy or meditation, right? When we think of meditation, we think of some skinny, rail-thin person who walks around barefoot, probably is a vegan, maybe they do psychedelic drugs. Again, not always the best or most flattering image comes to mind, especially to Americans. We like to think of this good-looking, successful, makes lots of money person, and we don't really take to that very easily. So, but as with most things, an open mind leads to new paths, and it can lead to healing and progress, and help you find your meaning in life, or at least maybe bolster your current meaning in life. Therapy is just as much about coaching and training to be better in all aspects of life as anything else, right? Help you be better at your work, your family, your relationships, your nutrition, your sleep, basically every chain link of wellness, right? Meditation is strictly just about being mindful. The way I look at it is you can meditate in any practice, right? You got to live in the moment and not be distracted. It's allowing psychology to positively affect your physiology. That's right. Your psychology, your mind state actively will change how your body reacts. When a person's in a bad mood, they're more likely to make bad decisions, and that can also affect your heart rate, your HRV, heart rate variability, blood pressure. All these things change. If you think about it, if you just breathe quicker, a lot of other systems in your body change, right? So Ikigai uses a few examples to help us get into all of this. Logotherapy is the big one. At least it's the one I attach myself to the most. It's guiding people, therapy that guides people towards a future and helps them understand why they experience emotions and what you can do with that. It does tend to compare to the traditional psychotherapy, more American/European ways of analyzing. Typically, we're going to look at your past, or the therapist will look at your past. They'll look at the emotions, where they came from, They'll try to analyze them, maybe even change them. But logotherapy doesn't really try to judge anything that happened in the past. It's there, cool. It doesn't try to change it. It doesn't really even try to analyze it. You just are supposed to accept what has happened. It is there. It didn't go away. And there are emotions, and you got to accept those too. But you're not trying to change them. You're just trying to realize they're there so you can use that information. Maybe like if that didn't feel good, you want to say, hey, this didn't feel good. How can we move past it? Not so much, why did this happen? Or why did this feel bad? Or how can we change that? It's just trying to live in the now and work on your actions in the now, where life is very tangible. Much like I've talked about in the past with all the chain links of wellness, you need to work on small changes and just keep doing them consistently, right? And eventually, if you do that, you're going to get to where you want to be. This holds true for your mind just as much as it does for your body, and this is where the therapy comes in. Though sometimes there is a spiritual element to these therapies and meditation, it's still a pretty straightforward concept. You don't have to buy into religion or anything like that. But feeling well sometimes is hard to physiologically describe. So it is an important factor to look into. So what you often get into with therapy is people have this hard stop where they don't feel like they have a meaning in their life to the point where it cripples them. It paralyzes them. They don't have a meaning to live, or let alone a meaning to go to their job, or a meaning for a lot of things, right? So this therapy attempts to take and get this person to look at life with a different perspective. So if you don't think you have a reason to live, then you can ask somebody, what would you die for? Right? And that may sound a little macabre, but just hang in here with me, right? So most people, even if they don't think they have a reason to live, have something they think they would die for. And this has major meaning by itself. For instance, most people that have kids would say, yes, I would absolutely throw myself in front of a racing truck for my kid's life, right? And there's other factors. It's not just kids. You don't have to be a parent to have meaning, right? Though that can be a simple example, right? What gets you fired up? Like, is there something you talk about that really gets you excited or gets you angry or gets you emotional? That thing is probably something that you should really lean into for your meaning, right? It may be not that exact thing, but it gets you started. Use that to guide you towards meaning, right? Also, it's not just enough to have that meaning. You can't just be like, this is my meaning, and then that's it. You actively have to fight for yourself. You can't just sit there passively. No one ever wins a war by avoiding conflict, right? You're always going to get hit by some kind of collateral damage. You need to fight actively for your meaning in addition to having it, in addition to working towards it. So let's summarize the principles of logotherapy and relate it to our overall wellness and chain links, right? So first of all, don't try to create meaning out of nothingness. You're going to try to discover meaning that was always there, right? We're not in control of our feelings, right? And we can't change the past. That is an absolute thing. Your feelings are going to happen whether you want them to or not. And you can't change whether you feel angry from something someone says or if you feel sad from something that was done. You can't change anything that happened in the past either. It happened. For instance, being overweight, having an injury, a damaged relationship, all these things will make you feel lots of emotions. Obviously, they'll be pretty negative, right? You might be sad, you might be angry, you might be mad at the world, right? But nothing that you feel is going to change anything. It's also not bad to feel those things. So we just want to set that aside after we realize that. Then we must realize we are in control of our actions, and you can only change what's happening now. So you need to focus onto that now, right? So you can find a therapist, you can help a friend or hire a trainer, you can throw away unhealthy food. You can make a lot of actions right now that may not change how you were in the past or may not change what's going to happen in the future necessarily, but they're going to change right now. You can control if you smile at somebody, you help somebody else, you say kind words, and these things are going to perpetuate that forward progress, that good emotion. Next, when you find your meaning, you discover a drive that will make you more resilient to overcome obstacles instead of avoiding them. Right? So once you have that meaning, you're the thing you'll die for, the thing you really want to achieve in your life, you're more willing to go through crap to get where you're going to go. Oftentimes, when you don't have a strong drive, you're unwilling to work hard to get past an obstacle. You're just going to sit there and mope, or you're going to avoid it and go in an inefficient path, right? So, for instance, if you die for your kid and that gives you meaning, and this is just an obvious example, that can lead to you wanting to do difficult things to make them better, right? So, for instance, doing homework with your kids. I don't want to do homework with my kids. I don't want to have to relearn concepts that we did when I was 5, or 10. But I'm willing to go back and read a book to become better at that for that reason. Maybe my purpose is training teenagers to be better at their sport. I don't want to always have to come back to those basics, but I'm going to have to reteach those kids how to do all these patterns in many different ways. And that's challenging. But if that's my meaning, I'm willing to push through that, right? And that can go for anything. Next, we all have a unique meaning for living, and it can change throughout your entire life. I tell this to people with goals all the time. Goals are going to change constantly, and that is okay. Oftentimes, you realize your goal is not what you really wanted, or maybe your goal was what you wanted when you were 20, but when you're 30, 40, 50, you don't want that anymore, and that is okay. It's not only okay, it's good. Not everyone wants to be skinny or muscular or get stronger or perform in a sport for the same reasons either, right? Maybe you want to be skinny because you feel like that's attractive, but maybe you want to be skinny for some other reason. Maybe you want to be muscular because it's part of your sport. Maybe you want to be muscular because you're told it's good for your health, or who knows? Maybe you just saw an actor that looked that way and you're like, yeah, that guy's cool. I want to be like them. And that can change, right? Maybe you wanted to be that way when you were young and you got older. You're like, maybe I don't care. And that's fine, right? Next, excessive attention to your desire can actually keep that desire from happening. Being too focused makes you rigid, and rigid things break very, very often, right? You need to move a little bit. Like, for instance, your bones. People think of bones as rigid, but they actually bend a little bit. They're pliable. The strongest bridges move a little. If they didn't, they would snap, right? So you can't be too focused on that one thing. If you're so hyper-focused on, say, for instance, being lean at all costs, you may forget why you wanted to be lean. You may also forget about there are other things than just eating less calories that matter. Either way, if you get too focused, you're not going to be able to get out of a cycle if the cycle doesn't work. And that will sabotage your goals overall or your motivations. Next, humor and positivity can help break negative cycles. So I've said this a lot of times. Smiling just makes you feel better. I probably look super insane when I'm like doing sprints on a bike and I just crack a smile. That doesn't look normal, but guess what? It really, really does work. I feel better when I do it. Try it out if you've never done it. If you're doing a task you absolutely hate, crack a smile and see what happens, because your brain probably goes to something else that made you smile in the past, like legitimately made you smile. A joke, your kid, a puppy, something you saw on the internet, who knows? But if your brain is changing its chemistry every time you do this bad thing, you're going to be able to get out of that negative attention, and that helps enormously, right? And last thing on this for the logotherapy is you want to know that you can all do good or bad things. It just depends on what decisions you make, right? Anyone could end up being a bad person or a good person, right? But if you think about the habit flow chart, for instance, that I talk about a lot, your actions matter more than your goals, because your actions will lead you generally towards something. Your goals you may not always get to, but as long as you're generally going in that way and you're making good quote unquote decisions, you're going to generally end up near where that goal wanted you to be, right? For instance, if you go to bed consistently at 9 p.m., you make and eat your own breakfast and dinner every day, you go to the gym 3 times a week, you talk to others with a similar goal who are also positive people, you're likely going to get your wellness goal. It doesn't even matter what your goal was. It's just going to be there, because those consistent things, those are decisions and actions you make consistently, they will be you. That will now be you, okay? So another form of therapy they dig into in Ikigai was this thing called Shoma Morita therapy. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name, but it's a purpose-paired therapy, just like logotherapy, but it's paired more with Buddhism. I love the concepts of Buddhism. It has a lot of really cool things. I don't always agree with all of it, and this book makes you think that this is the best way. Sometimes it's not necessarily. Everyone's different, but what it does do is it gives you some good food for thought. Again, it talks about accepting emotions. Don't try to control things. Stop trying to control things. You can't control emotions. You can't control the past, but you have to let them go. You have to work on that first. Next is doing what you should be doing. Focus on that. Don't focus on what you could have done better, or what you did in the past, or what you should be doing next. Focus on right now. And again, it's kind of the same as logotherapy, right? It's just worded a little differently. And then you need to discover that life's purpose, right? So life's purpose, your purpose, there's kind of a nebulous area, right? But hopefully doing what you should be doing will lead you to discovering your purpose, okay? So what this therapy would take you through, someone who's really stuck, is it would give them a period of isolation and rest, right? Just time to be mindful with yourself, right? Time to feel emotions. Don't try to control them, let them go. Then it would take you through a period of light occupational and regular occupational therapy, and eventually get you back to social life where you can deal with other factors at the same time. And finally, we want to get into what was called Nikon Meditation. The biggest thing I took away with this is stop blaming others for your feelings, your emotions. So we talked about you have to accept your emotions, but you also have to accept that your emotions are your own. Nobody else is responsible for you feeling angry or sad or lonely. That is internal. That is you. Don't blame others. Look at other people and try to analyze maybe why this happened or where they came from. What was your interaction with this person? This was really cool. So if you take a person in your life, just pick anyone out and you write this down. What have I received from this person, right? In general. What have I given to this person? And what problems have I caused this person? This is essentially a way to teach empathy and to rationally look at relationships. But this can work with a lot of different things, right? I feel like a broken tape here, right? All the concepts are really the same, but just written out differently. Therapy, meditation, they're not really new or different. They're like a business model for making more money, but your currency is fulfillment and happiness, right? So just sit down, write down your purpose. If you don't know that you have a purpose in life, ask for help finding it if you can't figure it out yourself. There really is no shame in seeking out help. Please do that. Okay. Write down your goals. Write down the actions you can take that will lead in that direction. And write down actions you might take that will lead you away from that action. It's very simple. 2 columns. Just write those things down. Try to have more simple actions in the first column, what you should be doing, and try to eventually get less things in your second column, things that you might do that will take away. Scrolling on social media, going out to drink with friends, watching TV. There's lots of things that are generally just going to waste your time. They're not productive. They're not inherently bad. The emotions you get aren't bad, but they can be distracting from your forward progress. It comes down to this. Don't stop moving. The book often says, don't retire. That's what I mean. Don't stop moving. Don't stop working, and you will have a happier, more purposeful life. Okay, guys. So that's it for this week. Next week, I want to get into the concept of flow, not just as Ikigai presents it, but also from a sports psychology perspective and how other practices define and use it. And we'll talk about how we can get to the point where you can find flow in every aspect of your life. If you guys are finding this interesting, like and subscribe. Keep looking out for the videos. And until next time, thank you so much and be well.